Okay, we're gonna try this again. I don't know what happened last time. I feel like I had some issues yesterday with this. If this doesn't work again, I'm gonna need to check out my network settings. And I don't know, maybe my internet's a little spotty today, which would suck. Um, but anyway, all right, so let's stand by, and I am almost ready to start. Let's do this take two. Hopefully, we can make this work. We're going to talk about a few things today. Jewish holiday, Palestinian activist. It's going to be great. Get ready. And here we go. Okay, so let's try this again. All right. Hopefully we don't start dropping frames again. I mean, come on. All right. So, welcome to News Shows for Those. I hope this isn't shitty. I don't know what's going on with my internet, and hopefully this is going to work. All right. So, anywho, I want to first let's check out the markets really quick. We had an amazing day on the stock market yesterday. Not that that's like indicative of everything that's going on, but let's take a look. Let's take a look at stocks. I've heard that they're leveling out. Let's see, Yahoo Finance. Stocks today. Let's check out the Dow. Nasdaq erases gains, S&P Dow extend declines as Trump boosts more tariffs. Oh boy, baby, get ready for the pain that was not promised at all. We were promised the opposite, and guess what? You elect a lying bastard idiot, and this is what you get. So, okay, great. So we are down another 1% today. We are, chugging right along. All right, so I don't have a lot of time today, so I'm just going to jump right into what I want to talk about. I was walking my dog this morning, and I was talking to my neighbors who happen to be Jewish, and their young child was telling me that he's getting very excited for Purim, which I believe is on Friday. I didn't know anything about that holiday, but he seemed really excited because he gets to dress up. And I was like, oh, that's great. This is like a very festive thing. But his dad was like, yeah, it's a little more somber. It's, we dress up because it kind of reminds us how we had to hide ourselves from persecution. I was like, oh, okay. And so I decided, ooh, let me learn about Purim. So Purim, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Let's see. Let's play the audio.
Purim,
Purim. Purim.
Purim,
Purim.
Purim,
Purim.
Purim.
Purim. All right. So that's how you say it. Purim. All right. So it's a Jewish holiday that commemorates. Sorry, guys. That commemorate. It's a Jewish holiday that commemorates the saving of the Jewish people from annihilation at the hands of an official of the Achaemenid Empire named Haman. So Haman, I'll lay it out for you. Haman was a royal advisor to the Persian king Ahasuerus, also known as Xerxes or Artaxerxes. He was a Persian king, and this advisor Haman had beef with Mordecai. Mordecai was also a Jewish servant of the king. He got in the king's good graces. His cousin, some say, might have been his wife. This happened in the uh, 3 or 400 BC, around that time, and we know about it from Esther's scrolls. Um, Esther's scrolls are Esther's accounts of this. Esther was a consort to the king who also hid the fact that she was Jewish from the king and his people. So here we go. The scroll of Esther takes place over 9 years and begins with a 6 month drinking feast given by Xerxes of the Persian Empire for the army. Um, so it begins with a drinking feast. There's a lot of feasting here. During the feasts, Azurus gets drunk and does not like the behavior of his wife, and and demotes her from her position as queen, and then looks for new consorts, one of whom is Esther, who is Jewish, but does not reveal her origins or that she is Jewish, because her cousin Mordecai told her not to, for out of fear of persecution. So they're hiding the fact that they're Jewish. Mordecai uncovers a plot to kill the king and saves the king, unbeknownst to the king. And this guy Haman uh, hates Mordecai because he refused to bow to him. So Haman orders a purge of the entire Jewish minority in the Persian Empire. So he casts lots, Purim, Purim, to choose the date on which to do this, the 14th of the month of Adar. When Mordecai finds out about the plans, he disguises himself and puts on ashes as a sign of mourning, publicly weeping and lamenting. So what happens is eventually the king finds out about all of this. At one point, Mordecai is rewarded by the king as being dressed up as the king and paraded around on his horse because he saved the king's life. So when the king finds out about that, he parades Mordecai around, and then all the while Haman has issued this order unbeknownst to the king, and also because Mordecai refuses to bow to Haman again, Mordecai orders the execution Haman orders the execution of Mordecai and builds gallows for him. So eventually the king finds out about all this, and the king says to Mordecai, he finds out that that Esther is Jewish, and so the king decrees that the Jewish people can preemptively kill those thought to pose a lethal risk. So the Jewish people exact their revenge on Haman and Haman's loyalists, and that's kind of the story, the rough story. I'll leave a link to the Wikipedia article, but it just kind of got me. It's like, oh, you dress up for, it's like another Halloween, and his dad's like, well, yeah, it's nice, but it also reminds us that we have to hide ourselves from people, or else we'll get killed. So it's very, it's just this reminder, and in these times where our leader is touting himself as a king and doing as much as he can within the law, and in the process breaking the law to get his way, and only waiting for people to call him out before he's stopped. Because I guess he can do that. You can break the law, and then people just say, "Oh wait, you're not supposed to do that," and then it stops. But you're dependent on people telling you that you can't do that. And who knows if that's going to stop or not. Um, so this is, it's very concerning times where we have a king who is now starting to round up protesters, making threats against U.S. citizens as protesters, threatening, I guess, at one point threatening citizens with deportation, definitely threatening them with removal from their universities and threatening them with arrests, threatening universities that support protests, oftentimes legal protests, threatening them to um, cut their funding, which is happening. I think he pulled hundreds of millions of dollars of funding to Columbia University, and now he and the State Department are have arrested uh, a green card holder, an immigrant who is here legally, who has not been accused or arrested of a crime, who's only guilty of participating, not even really participating, as I found out, but negotiating with for protesters at Columbia University. So I went back in time to May 9th, 2024, and I wanted to know more about uh, Mahmoud Khalil, who represented the protesters and negotiated for them. From what I've read, he didn't actively participate in the protest for fear of expulsion and revocation of his student visa. Um, and he unsuccessfully, I mean, to a certain extent, he was successful uh, in calling attention to his cause, but he was unsuccessful in getting uh, in negotiating for what the protesters mainly want, and that was a divestment in what was it? Divestment in Israeli. Uh, let me find this. It was in here. Um, uh, so the records and interviews show that Khalil and fellow protesters were unwilling to accept terms offered by Columbia that were similar to proposals that students at other campuses, such as Brown University, had accepted. Columbia, like Brown, offered to review its investments and consider divestitures. So they wanted to divest from companies that were actively supporting the Israeli oppression and uh, what they called genocide in Palestine, which is pretty much a genocide. I mean, you're indiscriminately killing and displacing an entire population. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a genocide. Um, so um, so just days after the encampment first appeared, Khalil said he and other protest leaders were offered a meeting with school president to discuss their demands. They declined, he said, believing it would be a publicity stunt by the school where the substance of their concerns and demands would not be addressed. Instead, they continued negotiating with other administrators. Um, so, less than 1% of the school's 13.6 billion endowment is publicly disclosed. Um, from limited information, protesters identify small holdings in 19 companies they believe are connected to the conflict between Israel and Hamas, including defense contractors, Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics, that make weapons used by Israel, and Caterpillar, whose bulldozers have been used by Israel to demolish Palestinian infrastructure in the West Bank and have been used by the IDF during the ground invasion of Gaza. So they want divestment from these companies, and they held protests. Um, and I believe in clearing the encampment and ending the protests, There were several arrests, but this negotiator, Mahmoud, was not actively participating in the protests. It says here on this other website, on this other news article I found from Al Jazeera, um, Khalil faced a dilemma common to international students. He was on an F1 student visa. His ability to stay in the country hinged on his continued enrollment. Jesus, come on. So, um, but participating in a protest that cropped up on Colombia's lawn last month meant risking suspension, which could hinder his enrollment status. Since the beginning, I decided to stay out of the public eye and away from media attention or high risk activities. I considered the encampment to be high risk. So instead, he opted to be a lead negotiator for Columbia University Apartheid Divest, a student group pushing school administrators to sever ties with Israel and groups engaged in abuses against Palestinians. So he served as a negotiator. He wasn't an active protester, but he spoke for the protesters and negotiated. He has since graduated for Columbia and is now in the country on a green card. So we all kind of know what a green card means. It means you are granted permanent residency and you are able to work in the United States. So I wanted to know more about the green card process. You can get green card through many different ways, through employment, through family, special immigrant, refugee, human trafficking victims, victims of abuse, other categories, and through registry. So you can apply and be granted a green card. So which Mahmoud was granted a green card, and the provisions of being in the United States, the rights and responsibilities of a green card holder, your rights as a permanent resident. You have the right, as a green card holder, you have the right to live permanently in the United States, provided you do not commit any actions that would make you removable under immigration law. That's the gray area, I believe. You have the right to work in the United States at any legal work of your qualification and choosing. And you have a right to be protected by all laws of the United States, your state of residence, and local jurisdictions. Your responsibilities, you're required to obey all laws of the United States and localities, which I believe, he was. He was not arrested. He was not charged with any crimes. He was briefly suspended. It was like a day or two, and then they revoked, and then Columbia University revoked the suspension. So he's never been accused of a crime. He's never been arrested. Definitely not as a green card holder. This all happened while he was on a student visa. And you're expected to support the democratic form of government. Support does not include voting, of course. Permanent residents cannot vote in federal, state, or local elections. And you're required to register with the Selective Service if you are male, age 18 through 25. You can fight for the country, but you can't vote in the country. Always interesting to me. So knowing all that, knowing that he's a green card holder, knowing that he's never been arrested or accused of a crime up until now, this is very suspect, and this is a sign of things to come. If the State Department is successful with this, I mean, he's being held right now, and I don't believe he's been officially accused of anything. It's very authoritative. It's very dictatorial, and it's concerning. It's concerning because you're going after this guy trying to do everything right, trying to speak up for his people as a Palestinian. He's a he's a citizen of Syria, I believe, but his family are Palestinian. So he's trying to speak up for his people in the greatest, freest country on the planet, and now he is so called, and now he is detained for doing so, because reading this article, if we get into this article, which I will post in the description after the live stream. Um, so they get into the Patriot Act down here. Um, get out of here. Ann Block, a senior staff lawyer at the Immigrant Legal Resource Center, told Al Jazeera that most schools have a designated official to monitor the status of international students. They generally are international student advisors, and they're the ones that help people get into the school, get their visas to come to the school from abroad initially, and normally help advise them. Even outside of an academic context, non citizens face the possibility of heightened consequences should they choose to protest. While non citizens enjoy many of the same civil rights as U.S. citizens, including the right to free speech, experts said that laws like the Patriot Act may limit how those protections apply. Passed in the aftermath of September 11th, the Patriot Act includes broad language that could be used to interpret protests as terrorist activity. Fantastic. According to civil rights lawyer and New York University professor Elizabeth Oyang, and the law empowers the government to restrict immigration to anyone engaged in such an activity. Section 411 of the Patriot Act bars entry to non-citizens who have used their position of prominence within any country to endorse or espouse terrorist activity. And what constitutes terrorist activity? And that's where the Secretary of the United States has broad discretion to interpret that. So, according to this NYU professor, and according to the Patriot Act and the interpretation of the Patriot Act, the broad language in it bars entry to non-citizens who have used position of prominence within any country. I think that's a typo, so I'm just going to say within any country to endorse or espouse terrorist activity. Now, the question is negotiating, not even actively participating in the encampment, but negotiating for those in the encampment and trying to negotiate for them and negotiate divestment from companies that are participating in the mass killing and indiscriminate bombing and raising of an entire population in a district, also, as far as I would call it, a genocide, negotiating for the divestment in a government that is participating in a genocide. Does that constitute terrorist activity? These people never advocated for violence. He never advocated for violence. He was only advocating for divestiture in a university. Does that constitute terrorist activity? And then since then, I haven't read too much about it, but since then, I believe he's been a vocal opponent of Israeli actions against Palestine. So now the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has broad discretion to interpret that. So, what has Marco Rubio, our oh my God, I can't talk today, our Secretary of State, what has he had to say about, I can't spell his name, um, Mahmoud Khalil. Mahmoud Khalil, right? Um, so, here we go. Marco Rubio threatens to deport green card holders over pro Palestine protests. Rubio's comments come after ICE agents detained Mahmoud Khalil, a leader of Columbia University pro Palestine protests last spring. A leader, but not a participant. He was not, he was a negotiator. Um, so, he has threatened to deport green card holders involved in pro Palestinian protests, marking a stark escalation of Donald Trump's crackdown on student activists. Rubio shared an Associated Press article about Mahmoud Khalil, the Columbia University graduate and lead negotiator for the Gaza Solidarity Encampment, who was arrested by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents in New York on Saturday evening. He was detained by the cops despite holding a green card, making him a lawful U.S. resident. We will be revoking the visas and or green cards of Hamas supporters in America so they can be deported, Rubio tweeted alongside the link to the article. He in no way has supported Hamas. He is supporting the divestiture and opposing Israel's action against Palestine. His people, the people, his his parents, his relatives. It's insane. So on Sunday evening, the Department of Homeland Security described the arrest as being in support of President Trump's executive orders prohibiting anti Semitism, while also alleging that Khalil led activities aligned to Hamas, a designated terrorist organization. This is a stretch. This is a stretch. And by this, if this goes through, then any citizen, then you can argue that any citizen of the United States protesting for Palestine, you can argue, is aligned to Hamas, a designated terror organization. So, under the Patriot Act and under the Secretary of State broad interpretation of said Patriot Act, let's go back to this article. So under, here we go. Patriot Act, here we go. So, can be used to interpret protest as terrorist activity. So here we go. Get ready, because if this goes through and nobody stops what's happening, then by definition, the federal government, the State Department, and the Department of Homeland Security will basically have approval to arrest anybody protesting for pro-Palestine. That is very concerning. This is the push. This is what, this is the goal, right? So, Donald Trump's crackdown. So here we go. Trump pushes ahead with tariffs. Oh, wait. This is not it. So let's go. Trump protesters. All right. So, okay, Trump vows crackdown on pro-Palestinian protesters. Okay, it's the first of many to come. We know there are more students at Columbia and other universities across the country who have engaged in pro-terrorist, anti-Semitic, anti-American activity, and the Trump administration will not tolerate it. Um, this is this is this is concerning. This is very concerning because what do we get? What's going on here, right? What is so this is not just this is not just about non-citizens. This is about uh, all citizens, right? This is about all citizens. They're just starting with green card holders. This is the litmus test, right? If we can get through this, if we can successfully do this with no pushback, with no judge saying that it's illegal, then we will move on to citizens, right? We'll start arresting citizens. We're going to start with student protesters. So this is very, very alarming. Yeah. So sorry. I'm gonna have to stop soon. Um, these are basically just the two things I wanted to talk about today. Um, and how am I doing, by the way? I haven't even checked my live stream, so I hope I'm not dropping frames here. It says no drop frames, so I think I'm doing good. Great, great, great. Um, very, very concerning. This is probably a sign of things to come. We're just getting started here, right? So we're going to deport illegals. We're going to arrest and deport green card holders under the guise of being pro-terrorist, anti-Semitic. There's a difference between being anti-Semitic and anti-Israel. There were plenty of Jewish people protesting at Columbia University. So does that mean that we'll start arresting Jewish people for protesting against Israel? Probably, right? Steve Bannon said the other day that he said the number one enemy to the people of Israel. This is, I mean, oh, come on. I don't want to go to Facebook to watch. Here we go. Watch this.
Folks from USSR, so they've expelled into real socialism. My question is to you is this: what do you think about foreign aid to Israel? Is it a strategic partnership?
Israel is a partner of the United States, but people in Israel got to understand something. The number one enemy to the people in Israel are American Jews that do not support Israel and do not support MAGA. Okay, MAGA and the evangelical Christians and the traditional Catholics in this country have Israel's back. They have the Jews' back. The biggest single enemy to the Jewish people are not the Islamic supremacists. The biggest enemy you have is inside the wire. Progressive Jewish billionaires that are funding all this stuff. They are the number one enemy, and the people in Israel have to set that right. Because MAGA has your back, traditional Catholics have your back, and evangelical Christians have your back. We will always have the back of Israel. But I got to tell you, you have an enemy inside the wire.
So, there we go. Fucking crazy shit. So let's connect the dots here. Let's wrap all this up, right? So let's wrap this up, okay? So to recap, we are starting to arrest and deport green card holders who support ceasefire and the This is too hard. So sorry. So let's recap here. So we are starting to arrest and deport green card holders who are in support of Palestine, not of Hamas, who are in support of the Palestinian people and their right to live as citizens, as human beings. They deserve the right to live, to not be indiscriminately bombed, to not be suppressed and oppressed and arrested and bombed indiscriminately by Israel. So we're starting with that. We're starting with revoking visas and green cards of Hamas supporters in America. Then we're going to crack down on students, citizens. We're going to start arresting American citizens and detaining them for supporting Hamas. And if you connect all the dots, and listen, Trump will never say it, but his people will say it, and they are saying it. They're saying that the greatest threat to the Jewish people is from within. The enemy within, who? Progressive Jewish people. The progressive Jewish people are the number one threat. This is...
Folks
Listen to this.
from USSR, so they've experienced real socialism. My question is to you is this: what do you think about foreign aid to Israel? Is it a strategic partnership?
Israel is a partner of the United States, but people in Israel got to understand something. The number one enemy to the people in Israel are American Jews that do not support Israel and do not support MAGA. Okay, MAGA and the evangelical Christians.
The number one enemy of the Jewish people are the Jewish people. I mean, this is MAGA in a nutshell, right? We are blaming the people we're blaming Jewish people and telling America, that's not, he's not saying that. He's not talking to Jewish people. He's talking to Americans. He's talking to Republicans. He's talking to MAGA, evangelical Christians, traditional Catholics, have Israel's back, right? So who doesn't have Israel and the Jewish people's back? The Jewish people. This is concerning. This is concerning. We're going to target. We're going to start targeting. We're already starting to target. We're targeting immigrants. Now we're targeting visa holders and green card holders. Next, we're going to target students, and we're also going to target the Jewish people who aren't towing the line. I mean, come on. What the fuck? What is happening? What is happening? This is concerning. This is turning down a road that we should see that road and be like, no, we've been down that before. We know where that leads. Never again. Never again. We always say that, right? Never again. Never forget. Never again. And then, give it a couple decades and it will happen again if we don't fight back. If we don't see what's happening, if we don't reject what's happening, it will happen again. And it's starting to. So we need to be on the lookout. We need to be in the streets. We need to be saying no. The judicial branch needs to shut this down, because support of Palestine is not support of Hamas. Okay? Just as support of Israel is not necessarily the supporting Jewish people and Jewish interests. There's a lot of people in Israel who don't support what's going on in Israel. You can look it up. There's protests left and right. Nobody, there's, and again, it's young people. Young people are always speaking out. So I don't know what's going to happen. I need to stop this live stream right now. Thank you for watching. I'll be on a little more regularly, a little more prepared tomorrow. I've had a busy week, but I just want to get out there and just touch base and, review what's going on. And before we go, let's see what's going on. Let's take a look at the stock market before we go. It's just a shame. It really is. It's a shame. It's a shame that this is where we are right now. Ups and downs, mostly downs, because we are, escalating tariffs. So now we have a tariff, a 25% tariff on Canadian steel and aluminum, doubling the levies planned to put in place on Wednesday, and reiterated his notion that Canada should be part of the United States. He framed such an outcome as inevitable. The artificial line of separation drawn many years ago will finally disappear. What the fuck? What is what is going on, people? What is going on? Canada, the 51st state? Tariffs, actively crashing the economy? Just knee-jerk reactions to things, arresting students, painting progressive Jewish people as the enemy, the absolute enemy, arresting students, deporting green card holders and visa holders. This is ridiculous. This needs to stop. We're in a world of hurt, and we're in a world of shit. This is not good, people, and something needs to happen. I don't know what. We need to be out in the street, and we need to be doing something. Unfucking believable. Well, that's about all I got for today. I'm going to leave. Maybe I'll put this together, put a couple shorts out there. Thank you very much for watching. I'll be on again tomorrow, refreshed and ready to go. And we'll see what other kind of bullshit's going on in the country tomorrow. All right, everybody. Take care. Bye.